We're setting up the live stream. All right. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Ivan Salinas. I'm the programs manager here at Beyond Baroque. I want to welcome you to the Wanda Coleman Theater. I want to start by acknowledging our presence in unceded territory of the Tongva. We stand in solidarity with indigenous communities who have endured colonialism and displacement. We stand against genocide and are committed to provide a space for artists and communities of indigenous descent, as they are the original stewards of this land. This arts organization was founded in 1968 by George Sturdy Smith, which began as an experimental literary magazine and evolved into the interdisciplinary art space it is today. You can learn more about our historical venue that is now 57 years old and has always been a space taken care by artists and writers. We've been in this building since the late 70s and has always been a home for new movements of art. To keep up with our upcoming events, I encourage everyone to sign up to our newsletter. Beyond Baroque will have an exciting March, among them starting with this beautiful program, but also we have a new anthology out called Poetry Goes to the Movies, edited by Suzanne Loomis. This is a Beyond Baroque's Pacific Coast series, a specific part of our branch of Beyond Baroque books, and it is debuting during AWP at the end of this month. So if you've got your tickets, we'll see you there. If not, please, there's still time to get some. It will be at the LA Convention Center, and with that, we have a array of programs. For one, we have the anthology launch, which we'll be having March 28th here in the space. And there will be several contributors of the anthology that will be sharing their poems and their thoughts on the films that have inspired them across the years, anywhere from Hollywood classics to independent cinema. So we'll be having a whole slew of events with that anthology. But also in the conference, we are exploring the archives that recently have been acquired by Cal State Dominguez Hills, the archives of Beyond Baroque. So we are sort of exploring the process of archiving from institutions, independent communities, and universities. So that will be March 27th at 9 a.m. So be on the lookout for that. In our social media, you can follow us, and we'll be posting several announcements following up to the conference. And also in March, we are celebrating Women's History Month, and we are having a slate of events for that as well. Just next week, we are hosting an anthology, a set of readings for an anthology called Hyena, and it celebrates women and surrealism. And we'll be having writers like Deborah Meadows in here, Larkin Higgins, and the publishing arm of Hex and Text. So, yeah, be on the lookout for all that, and as well as the closing of our gallery, which is on view right now upstairs in the Mike Kelly Gallery. It is an ekphrastic show by artist Ansel Crute. We also continue to offer free Monday night and Wednesday night workshops, focusing on developing participants' fiction and poetry writing. For anyone interested in joining, you can talk to me or to Genesis at the bookstore, and we'd love to see you on Zoom for any of those workshops. And for those of you who are members, we'd like to thank you. This is a difficult year. We are facing a lot of threats to defunding. We are facing just, our instability to continue spaces like this. It has been, years of uncertainty back to back. And I think this program will also explore some of that. As just 5 years, many of us were probably in the rain outside of Costco, probably, or, that is like the mild version of it, but some of us lost jobs, some of us lost, just even housing. So I remember, definitely March 12th was a very difficult day to navigate as an undergrad student at Cal State Northridge. So, shout out to to see sun, but it was just a very eerie time, and we're very privileged, and it is just very lucky that we got through it and are able to gather like this in person once again, and it did not escalate so much. But looking back at it, it's easy to kind of recollect those memories, but as we were living through it, it felt like it was never ending. And now it feels like we want to go back to a state of how things were, but it's really not like that anymore. And I think we are resilient, though, and fighting to imagine more a world of liberation rather than trying to go back to carceral solutions and stuff like that. So just before I pass it on to the readers and our host, just want to shout out our tech director, Eric Alberg. Thank you for sharing that, for running the sound today, and also our team, directors Quentin Ring, Jimmy Vega, Genesis Press in the bookstore, Rhiannon Cielos Chavez, and all of the beautiful Beyond Baroque team that make all of our events happen. So want to welcome our host of the afternoon and beautiful poet who has also published Contact Tracing and also the organizer of this event. Lisa Eve Cheby is a poet, librarian, school library advocate, and a daughter of Hungarian immigrants. Her 3 chapbooks have recently been reissued under Strike Through Press, including Contact Tracing, which inspired today's reading. At the reception, she invites you to ask her about the 2 bills for school libraries she has shepherded into the California legislature, why ChatGPT is not a research tool, and why chapbooks should be more appreciated as a unique art form. Yeah. All right, let's go up for Lisa Cheby.
Thank you so much. Thank you to Beyond Baroque for hosting, to Yvonne and Genesis and Eric, who were incredibly helpful today and in planning this event. And of course, to the whole Beyond Baroque team. It has been a dream to not just read on this stage, which I have done before, and I feel very grateful for that, but to actually host a program here. So I'm completely thrilled to be here. I'm grateful for all of you who I cannot see due to the lights, but I know you're out there somewhere, and for coming out on this Saturday. So I'm thrilled to be reading with these talented writers. I'm going to start by introducing kind of the idea of the event and the writers first, and then I'll move into some readings from some excerpts from Contact Tracing. So the women with me today were essential in maintaining my well-being during the pandemic. Saturday mornings, members of Women Who Submit, many who are here in this room, so this includes all of you, an organization, so Women Who Submit is an organization supporting women-identified writers through the submission process. So we would all log into Zoom on Saturday mornings to share a writing prompt, our accomplishments, and our goals as writers. And this is why I wrote daily and was able to believe my writing was necessary and mattered during that time. And that's how I ended up writing this book, just through that discipline and persistence and encouragement. So before we start the program, I'm going to introduce the other readers with me, but also, because I don't want to have to say each time with each reader, I will say that all of us have work that has appeared in numerous altogether anthologies and journals. All of us have that, just in case you're wondering why you're listening to us. We have done that. So, and thanks to Women Who Submit, because we keep submitting, right? And everyone also has a piece in or has somehow worked on one of the 3 Women Who Submit anthologies: Accolades, Gathering, or Transformation. So first, our first reader will be Kate Maruyama. Kate Maruyama writes, teaches, cooks, and eats in Los Angeles. She's the author of Alterations, The Collective, Bleak Houses, and Harrogate. Her short story, which is one of my favorites, A Gentleman's Suit, in Halloween Beyond, which she will not be reading from today, so you can get that book and read it on your own. But it's a tale of becoming in a world undone by lockdowns and fear, and that was one of the reasons, as well as the story she'll be reading today, that I invited Kate to read at this event. Kate was the friend who would come by and meet me outside my apartment in 3D with our masks, of course, to give me homemade cookies, lemons from her tree, and yeast for making bread and pizza dough. One of my other favorite pieces of pandemic literature is a joint poem by Noriko Nakada and Hazel Kight Witham in the Women Who Submit anthology Gathering, and they will be reading that today. Noriko Nakada is a multiracial Asian American teacher, parent, and union organizer who captures the stories she has been told not to talk about. And like, if you want to wave so people know who, I think everybody in the room knows her. But anyway, and Kate over here on the side with, So she is a multiracial Asian American teacher, parent, and union organizer who captures the stories she has been told not to talk about through her fiction, nonfiction, poetry, and art. And we are grateful you do that, Noriko. She's the author of the memoir trilogy Through Eyes Like Mine, Overdue Apologies, and I Tried. A board member of Women Who Submit, Noriko is represented by Emily Keys of Keys Agency. Woohoo! And she lives on stolen Tongva land in Los Angeles, as most of us, or all of us who live here do. Hazel Kight Witham is a mother, teacher, and she's over here, next to Noriko, is a mother, teacher, writer, artist, and slam coach. She has been an English language arts teacher in LAUSD since 2001, was a California Teacher of the Year finalist, in 2020, and facilitates educator workshops on building a sustainable teaching practice. Hazel is a proud member of Women Who Submit, and her memoir in verse, The Truth About Secrets. I was going to say that, but all my links didn't print. So I'm like, here, wait. And I just noticed that as I'm introducing everybody. So my apologies. The Truth About Secrets, which I absolutely love, came out in June 2024. I'm excited to read with her. Hazel Noriko also are co-creators of the, it's kind of like a blog, Substack, newsletter, Take a Minute, right? Because that link also, okay, Take a Minute, about the move to no phone classrooms. And I have already cited them in my own research because it's amazing. So check that out. And also the three of us are press siblings at Strike Through Press, which was founded by Noriko. So super excited to have this reading with them. After they read, we will have the pleasure of hearing a story from Los Angeles native Désirée Zamorano. I am privileged to share a writing workshop with Désirée since 2017. Her input and encouragement has shaped my poems in contact tracing and just in general. I also get a first look at many of her award-winning short stories, including the ones set against the pandemic she will be sharing today. Désirée's groundbreaking family saga historical fiction novel Dispossessed, which should be required reading for everyone in Los Angeles, was released last year, and her highly acclaimed literary novel, The Amato Woman, will be re-released in 2025. But that's not it, because it's Désirée. Her story, Caperucita Roja, was chosen as a distinguished short story in Best American Mystery and Suspense. And in 2026, because we can't get enough of Désirée's writing, so you can look forward to more in 2026, the University of Nevada will publish a collection of her stories. And finally, Romaine Washington. As I was imagining these events for the 5-year anniversary of COVID and my book release, which was last summer, I was reading her mini memoir in verse, Purgatory Has an Address. I did not know It's a great book. I did not know when I started the book that this was a collection about the early days of the pandemic and Black Lives Matter demonstrations. I'm grateful she was willing to be part of these readings, as I'm a huge fan of her poetry and performance. I also recently had the chance to take a workshop with her, and I highly recommend it. I think she has another one coming up in April. It remains over here on the side. And she's also the editor, in addition to that, of These Black Bodies Are Blacklandia Anthology and of Sirens in Her Belly, another wonderful collection of poetry. She has presented her work on NPR and KPFK. Romaine has been an educator for over 20 years and considers all forms of writing and reading to be a source for learning, healing, and growth. And this is why I believe, this belief is why I thought it was important to use my book to remember how we made it through one challenge, the pandemic and lockdowns. By redefining community, finding and speaking our truth in the forced slowdown, and reimagining what kind of world we really want to live in. During that time, we had to find new ways of connecting and of sharing this world. It is a privilege to visit someplace not home, to sleep in high thread count sheets and visit markets where you may taste a life you'll never have to live and a meal you'll never have to make. It is a privilege to walk unmasked into stores, spreading your gregarious, contagious plumes of laughter on those who serve you, a consolation souvenir for not winning the birth lottery. But who am I to talk of privilege from my studio apartment? All this space for me to Zoom for my paycheck, that I only need to leave to park my Prius in a parking spot and wait for a masked worker to bring me my groceries. Thank you. I project my masked smile from 6 feet like a dying star that can only hope its light will be seen through the smog. The weather breaks for Good Friday with the news. Another month and 5 days. The sacrifice, everyone laments, as if we were not already living in a crisis of democracy and humanity. I retreat further into what I can control. I buy a better mask so I can do laundry in machines shared with neighbors who are strangers. I put my trust in work and Shavasana and the helicopters and sirens. The helicopters and sirens prophesizing what is to come, how quiet and quaint this preparation will seem when we have to decide what we will risk, who matters. Quickly, the world pushed back to normal, and many of us wondered if we wanted to return to normal after imagining something better, even as we struggled with the separation. Once I got lost weeding in the library. When we sheltered in place at work, a suspicious object in the parking lot. The library darkened. No one told me it was safe to leave. Now, safer at home, I check the news twice a day, afraid I will again let slip the all clear, the return to normal, that I am not sure I miss. What was the last thing you did for 6, 18, or 108 consecutive days? What do you want with your steak on Tuesday? Which hour is the trail most empty? What hour do I need the dough so we have time to rest and rise, rest and rise? Do you find you are not in a rush to go back to what you thought would make you happier? What if we celebrate our milestones by practicing yoga, by sinking into a groove, or a depression of pillows or lover's arm, by sinking with nature to renew and wonder? Thank you. So recently at church, during the kind of children's hour, but it was just a teenager, not children, or moment, not hour. But he was asked about a moment that changed him. And he said the pandemic. And then he spoke about how we all went into lockdown as one person and reemerged as someone new. And then reuniting how we had to negotiate that sort of incongruence between who we were and who we are, and who our friends were and who they are. But through those check-ins and our writing group online, we were able in this community to witness each other's transformation. And so I'm excited to let them share with you their stories. Kate.
I came in costume. Anyway, I have a cold I didn't want to share. Happy International Women's Day. This is an amazing show of women writers and publishers, and I was very gratified that actually the two things that I'm reading from were published by women. The cover was designed by a woman, so big shout out to the women in publishing. So the first thing I'm reading from is my novella Safer, which plays with all notions of safety, and it doesn't need any introduction. I'm reading from the beginning. Mom didn't want me to take the job at first. I wonder now if she knew somehow. She said, "You'll be living in their house, Mija. How much of a creep is the dad?" She'd gotten a little too into the whole Schwarzenegger housekeeper scandal and worried for any domestic worker friend out there. People magazine was her drug of choice. Mom, I can take care of myself, damn. Plus, what else was I going to do with the summer of COVID? Los Angeles was in full lockdown. The restaurant where I used to work a lucrative weekend shifts was closed. I had 2 more years of college, and the online jobs were all taken. It's not like the preschool where I worked was reopening anytime soon. And there was no seeing anybody during this thing. If I got this job, at least I'd be around people again. I seriously missed people. Going from 2 jobs and packed classes to my own 4 walls was much too fast. I needed this. Where is it? She was frying something sizzly. I missed her meals like crazy and hanging out with her when she cooked. But 2 years this side of breast cancer, she was at risk, and we were keeping each other safe. Sure, she left me Tupperware full of food when I dropped off the groceries, but it wasn't the same. Up in Beechwood Canyon, something called Wolf's Lair? She gasped. Moby owned that place for years. It's supposed to be haunted. People magazine strikes again. Haunted how? I heard that edge coming into my voice I sometimes got with my mom, and it made me feel bad since I saw her so seldom these days. But I knew I was in for some line of haunted celebrity bullshit she'd picked up from me online or something. He sold it to Anonymous. You're going to work for Anonymous. Oh my God, take some pictures, will you? Maybe leave your camera on when you walk around? You have to tell me who Anonymous is. It's an interview, Ma. I don't think filming would look good. Then you better get that job. All her cautionary tales had somehow fallen away at a chance that her kid might work for someone famous enough to gossip about. That Friday, I used Mom's Camry to curbside pick up their weekend groceries at Ralph's, which I dropped off on their front stoop in Temple City. I went back to her car before I texted her. She was always threatening to hug me, which scared the crap out of me. I was not going to be the one to kill my parents. Of course, she was at the door in a minute flat, pulling on her flowered mask she'd made out of an old tablecloth, toting a bag chock full of Tupperware of food. Mommy had never quite learned how to cook for fewer than 8 people, so there were always leftovers. Her hair had gone gray because of the lack of a hairdresser, and I could swear she was shorter. COVID was sucking the life force out of my parents, out of all of us. Come in for a minute. We'll just keep our masks on. She started walking toward me. I stepped around the driver's side of the car to put the car between us. Ma, don't start. Plus, I have an interview. She squealed with excitement like a preteen girl. Anonymous! It's someone really famous. I just know it. Text me when you're there. I opened the car door, and my threat of getting into the car showed her progress as she got too close to me. I gotta go. I'm late. I love you. Don't forget to wash all the groceries. I'll bring back the car when I'm done. Mom and Dad were over an hour bus ride from my apartment, but this was how we rolled. She shook her head and waved me away. Wash the groceries. It's stupid. Jesus Christ, my parents were going to die, and it was going to be because my mom didn't listen. I said, wash the groceries for me, Ma. I mean it. Do I have to send you another article? No, enough with your articles. This is nuts. You're nuts. I gotta go. I love you. She waved and then labored under a big bag of groceries, and I realized I should have split up the carrots and the potatoes into separate bags. I wondered when my larger-than-life, fierce, hilarious mommy had gotten so old. I backed out of the driveway before she thought of anything else to say. And there's another little section. It's just sort of an overview of the city. LA is the most beautiful city. The mountains and hills run throughout, and their unstable geological makeup means that a lot of them haven't been built on. In much of the city, particularly the close hills, you were as likely to come across a family of deer as coyotes crossing your path, or skunks rooting through your garbage as you were to hit traffic on the freeway. Nature coexisted with us here, always threatening to take over. Since lockdown, traffic had subsided so much that the air was cleaner than it had ever been in any June past, and there seemed to be 5 times as many birds, or were we just noticing them more? My friends posted pictures of bioluminescence coming back to Santa Monica Bay for the lack of heavy tankers cruising through. I'd always said that given a year, nature would reclaim the city, and everything I saw in those quiet moments was proving this to be true. So one thing during... Thanks. One thing that was hard during lockdown, because I don't know, those of you like living at home with families probably I went into freeze mode for like 4 months. And finally, it was Sochi came over for some distance coffee in the yard, and she's like, Women Who Submit has been meeting every Saturday for like months now. I was like, what? I realized, I think a lot of the lessons that we learned in lockdown we're taking now. And I realized that face-to-face time with people, even if it's across a sidewalk, even if it's getting a what do you call it, sourdough starter from Lisa Cheby on her corner. Friends are everything. And I think that the face time that we can spend now is absolutely vital as we sort of go through this new challenge, which is different, but it brings up a lot of memories. Anyway, this piece, I realized I wrote a lot of pandemic stuff. I've forgotten about Halloween Beyond. This piece, also published by women, edited by women, and Yenny Chung is here, so from the Coachella Review, which is where this story appeared. This is my tribute to my son, who was working at Cafe Dolce in Little Tokyo during lockdown. And so I would drive down to an abandoned city and drop him off for work, and I would pick him up. And so some of the things that are seen here are in those really quiet mornings. And I was so sad, and I said, this is really hard looking at downtown this way. And he said, a city is its people. And that absolutely killed me that day. But all right, so this is another beginning, so no explanation. Whenever he couldn't get out of bed with his 6 a.m. alarm, Milo reminded himself the bakers were already at work, and it'd be his ass if he didn't get in there and start setting up. He also told himself to stop being a pussy. By the time he arrived at Cafe Drago for a 7 a.m. shift, the sun was just coming up and the bakers already in, having arrived at 4. They were the kinds of guys who worked their asses off and never complained, the kinds of guys he'd like to live up to. At the first snooze alarm, Milo slipped out of bed so as not to wake his sister and crept through the living room past his sleeping Obachan. She started calling him the man of the house since his dad died, which really bothered him since it was only 3 months since that happened. He's only 20, for Christ's sake, but since he was earning a fraction of what his dad made and that fraction was keeping them afloat amidst his Graham's cancer treatment, he supposed she wasn't wrong. They all worked. His sister, Misa, tutored primary school kids on Zoom on top of her junior year high school classes, and his Graham started a cottage industry making masks, which Misa sold on Instagram. He grabbed one of his Graham's cotton masks covered with sleepy Gudetama eggs for traveling and his N95 for work and closed the door behind him. He took the stairs because after Dad died of COVID, he wasn't taking any chances with elevators. Milo always got to the bus stop early because if the bus was off by 10 minutes, he missed it and ended up being late, which meant calling an Uber, which might not seem like a lot, but the money spent was as good as losing an hour of work. Besides, it wasn't super safe to be in a closed car with a stranger these days. It wasn't like the bus was safe, but there was more breathing room and less feeling trapped. That morning, he headed out earlier than was usual because it was pouring. Southern Californians move slower in the rain. So there was no traffic this early, and the bus was much zippier than usual. He ended up at work half an hour early for the shift. If this were a regular dry morning, he'd wander around the part of the city that hadn't woken up yet. The local houseless folk would emerge from their tents and head out to whatever free bathrooms they could find. He'd watch the bicycle guys circling the parking lot in slow, lazy figure eights and witness the occasional walk of shame. He'd chat with the little Tokyo security guard who always had hilarious stories from the night before. But this morning it was raining, and half an hour early meant getting soaked. Glasses steamed from the combo of his mask and the cold air. He couldn't wait to get indoors. He let himself in with the key, only to find the quiet broken by shouting from the kitchen and a lower, heavier, rumbling noise he couldn't pass. He headed back to see if he could help, his glasses re-steaming in the heat. And it's a dragon, but anyway, thank you, and thank you so much, Lisa. Next up, Noriko Nakada.
Thank you, Kate. Thank you so much, Lisa, for bringing us back together 5 years later. It does feel like 5 years. And it doesn't, and it feels longer. It's wild. Time's wild. So a lot of my writing that I shared in those spaces when we were meeting were letters to my father. Dad turned 94 on January 13th. And this correspondence was what I had. Hey, Dad. Fires rage along the West Coast, bringing us together by way of sun glowing red through smoke-filtered skies. Do you remember those mountain passes we traveled from our small town to everywhere? The tree-lined two-lane highways, the sound of cinders ticking against the car, the high expanse of blue sky and rivers rushing roadside, now consumed by flame, heat, reduced to sacred ash. I did not ask you about the sky today. You did not tell me if you thought it might rain. Hey, Dad. I've been timing our phone calls lately, as if the number of minutes we talk could tell me something about our connection. We've had our shortest chats less than 2 minutes long, clipped short, like a fingernail cut to the quick. Maybe you aren't sure who the voice is on the other end of the line. You sometimes confuse your daughters now. Maybe our calls stay short because it's too hard not knowing who is attached to the voice on the other end. Is this one calling surrounded by palm trees and sun? Or is this the one who lives across town and is standing just outside for a visit? I hear you pull open the curtain to check the sky and the sidewalk. You say, "Give my love to David and the kids. I love you." I love you too, Dad. I answer and pretend these phone calls can span the miles and scattered memories. We hang up, and I look to see how many moments we just shared, but the seconds only measure all the ways I'm losing you. Hey, Dad. Growing up on the farm, your father taught you all of the ways to make seed become tidy rows of strawberries, sweet potatoes, lettuce. In the high desert, you planted a garden on the south side of the house in order to make the most of the sun, and corn grew taller than all of us. When you moved to the muddy soil of the valley, which held more water than you'd ever lived around before, you tended hydrangeas and rose bushes. Now you're inside most of the time, so it's bamboo thriving in pots next to jade pothos and Brazilian stone. How are you able to grow green wherever you are? Can you teach me how not to kill things? Hey, Dad. It was so great to see you today, to talk to you face to face, even though it was through a screen. Your haircut looks great and your smile, and you seem better now than you have in months. I loved that my kids got to say hi, and your interactions brought us all joy. Although I fear we might just exhaust you. But then, just before we hung up, you said goodbye to Kiara. And you said her name, Dad. I don't think I've ever heard you say her name before, each syllable bearing its own weight. Kiara. Similar to the way you say Noriko, casting a distant memory of you teaching me how to say my own name. Thank you. So I'm going to bring up Hazel, my great writing partner, friend, who we have shared so many words, and we wrote this pandemic post, which is in Gathering, and Hazel's going to start us off.
Thank you, Nori. Let's see if I can get this up a little bit. Hello, everyone. Thank you so much to Lisa and all of you for coming out from near and far. It's such an honor to be here. So Noriko and I had the blessing of those Saturday check-ins, but we also tried to stay connected as writing partners. And this is our pandemic post, and I'll read a little bit about what inspired it. These poem missives were exchanged across the summer and fall of 2020. They were inspired by Envelopes of Air, a series of poems by Ada Limon and Natalie Diaz, published in The New Yorker in the spring of 2018. They were one small way we writer, teacher, mothers stayed connected through the global pandemic. Final Friday of summer, HKW to Nakada. I woke this morning in my home for the first time in days. The desert was prickly relief within cactus of dread on last Monday before school year. The small griefs of travel seeping up from sticky carpet, 111-degree heat, panting midday, keeping us cloistered, screened. I am noticing all the things I find to begrudge, how usually what breaks me is the run, sweat, loosens the locks, uncages brain. I've been doing so much teacher time these days, Nori, even while on air quote break. This morning, you and I write together, apart, and the last image I have of you is your son head bopping your chin. How the exuberance of 5 often equals oops and ow. Boundaries are slippery now. All screen tethered and to-do list echo of connection comes through prison portals. I'm remembering the long hours of companied leisure, the storied wilderness we wandered. At night, in the desert, while kids were screen wrapped, D and R and I drifted weightless in the aqua of pool glow, scooping praying mantis from siren song of beckoning water, wandered through stories of our past selves, those people who knew nothing of now. I'm going to work on gratitude again, and thanks to Ross Gay, delight. I'm going to work on patience and small daily practice, seeing big things through to satisfying end. There's something to the breathtaking urgency of now, letting go of all that did not serve, rescuing ourselves from the frantic chop, drenched but alive, offering prayer into the clutched air, relishing this new view.
Can we talk about the weather? Nakada to HKW. Can we talk a little more about the desert, about the air and the pools of conversation, our past lives floating, because we are trapped and the rest feels so desperate, so far away? Can we talk about that praying mantis rescued from a watery grave and the praying it might have done, but probably didn't, still resulting in its resurrection? Can we talk less about teaching and more about writing? Although the two are so linked, we can never seem to have one conversation without the other. I forgot to tell you, I recorded a reading I'll never use. It captures the lyrics of REM's Hair Shirt and an excerpt of Drive. You are beautiful, this life. Let's click a cassette tape into a car stereo and drive away, even if just for a few moments, and escape these prison portals, these voices calling out to us from every corner of this gentle trap. What would you listen to, Hayes? Could we breathe sitting next to one another with the windows down and let go of the fear that we might be killing one another? Can we talk about how beautiful it all is and how fucked up? I know we must find a way to keep breathing when even these envelopes, these words, these missives fail to fill the void.
We had several of these going back and forth, and we would paint each other little pictures or draw little pictures. So these are the last two in the series. A good place to start. HKW to Nakada. It's been weeks now since I've poemed across these miles. Tonight I am raw girl, father-fearing, in this time of hugless and lonely, solo room, long days. I'm still working on gratitude, and I do not have my own map, only borrowed ones, worn soft. I keep rereading to compass my way forward. My father is somewhere on that island, neither of us reaching out, and the broken of us is something I imagine will lift with loss. Maybe I am the one forgetting. What am I doing to be the person I want to be, but looking to others to guide me, then pretending I might know a way? I miss you, friend. I miss Brussels sprouts, yellowtail, caramel budino, the grounding from writer's sister who is so much braver than I. Tomorrow, I'll text invite to small birthday gather for boy who is growing into 9. And I know the answer will likely be no, and I will tell myself I won't take it personally, not in times like these, and will keep doing the screen thing. But I am atrophying in this pixelated facsimile. I just keep hoping we survive. George Floyd's birthday is coming. So is an election. I need to listen to what Patricia Smith told us today. Look for the beauty where everything is ugly. Look for the humor where nothing is funny. And I think that is a good place to start. There's so much material, isn't there?
A false choice, Nakada to HKW. I woke up the other morning with the first lines of this poem on my heart. Is it safe yet to celebrate? Your last poem reminded me of levity, a good place to start. But that was before the election and the most recent surge, before doctors and nurses urged us all again not to look away. Still, I remind myself that I need the light and laughter, seeing how bad and serious has never been my problem. So I write again because the words still show up despite doubt and neglect, because my body keeps carrying me through these days, although I curse and critique it and do not let it rest. Because time outdoors has done me good and our planet still sustains us despite our abuse. Because blood is blue until you are cut wide open, exposing red, and the purple bruise of our country might start to heal. Yes, It's a good place to start. What other choice do we have? To not begin? One more time for Noriko. So those Saturday check-ins were everything, and they gave me a model too of things I could take back to my classroom. There were so many times that, like, what happened in those Saturday check-ins inspired my teaching life. And it also helped sustain me, as my friends here have said, through those hard times. It helped me return again and again to the page. And because of that, this book was born. This is The Truth About Secrets, published by Strike Through Press, my publisher, Noriko Nakada over here. During lockdown, in February 2020, my family of 4 and I returned to my childhood home. And then the world shut down, and we were safe with my mom right there. And it was such a blessing, but also so wild to be back in my childhood home. And this book is about my middle school days, the day in 6th grade where everyone found out my mom was gay. My God. It's like terrifying. And my dear friend Jasmine over here is a character in this book. She has come in from Las Vegas this weekend and gets to be here. And so it was really interesting to be protected during that time in this home that my mom's built. And so this is the closing poem of this book, and it's an ode to my mom's. Quonset hut of love was what my mamas called each other in the early years. Quonset huts, prefabricated temporary military structures, 170,000 or so built in World War II, turned song of sweetness between them. These two women who turned to women before women loving women turned chic. Quonset huts, corrugated, galvanized half-domes, unassuming from the Quonset outset, requiring no skilled labor to assemble, shippable anywhere. Later, the surplus found new homes in countless places. Semicircular, rust-resistant, flexible interior spaces. Something that could pop up and protect as needed wherever. I never knew where they got this term of endearment from. Never asked in the depths of childhood's thrum. What made these two women, one Brooklyn-born, one Texas-torn, sing songs of corrugated, galvanized half-domes? My mamas, my maps, my refuge, my home. All bare-boned, basic, rust-resistant, flexible, spacious, all peace and love and war zone ready. Thank you. So I'm going to call up a few friends now. We're going to read a collaborative poem. So our, come on up, Désirée and Noriko and Lisa. So during those Saturday check-ins, we would always start with some writing prompt. And we would then move into our sharing. And when it was my turn to lead the writing prompt, I just asked that we write about what this community had meant to us. It had been several months at this point. And so I gathered all the writings from the people that were in that Zoom, and it became this collaborative poem map. So this is called Ahoy, Women Who Submit. A collaborative poem map by members of Women Who Submit's Saturday virtual check-in, launched at dawn of pandemic, by Melissa Chadburn, Désirée Zamorano, Xochi Julissa Bermejo, Lisa Cheby, Daria Topusis, Flint, Amanda L. Andre, Colette Sartor, Charnel Blevins, V.K. Lynn, Sibel Garcia Cole, Carla Sameth,
Lisbeth Koyman, Valerie Burns, and Noriko Nakada, curated by me, Hazel Kight Witham.
Ahoy, as used on ships, was used as the first telephone greeting. Back in 1889, Central Telephone Exchange operators were known as hello girls because of the association between the greeting and the telephone.
Ahoy, women who submit. These mornings sinking under the weight of extraordinary, now rendered ordinary. Today I made coffee, wondering if I should save a cup for our time together. I cut fruit, read through my journal, wrote new words. This is how I prepared for you. This is how I remember I am real. We are connected and time is sacred.
Ahoy, hello girls, touchstones. Together inside respite, we remember. Writing is the solace, the struggle, the shadow, and the light. This breath that always matters.
You let me clear my throat. You let me stretch my hands. Listen, someone's unmuted. I hear birds chirping from their home to mine.
Over 225 days, the space has been mapped to new world that came barreling in without invitation, without instructions. Until we, ahoy women, we, touchstones, began cartography together. Mapping accomplishments to celebrate, to commemorate, goals, where are you voyaging next, where will your words go, needs, how can we star spell each other through?
These cells are breath and music and joy, marking the weeks, mapping pages and poems and possibility. During a year of intent on anchoring all our levity, we joy and promise and ask. All sail and propeller and rudder and wind guiding us through the storm.
Ahoy, women, look how we make land together. Map these discouraging, divided times, make community across wonder of air, buoy and breath in these high seas, safe haven, respite, touchstone, and lifeline, as we sail our words out to map something new. All right, up next, it's Désirée.
Thank you. Gosh, I don't know about you all, but I am going through so many different emotions in all of these readings. Whoa, and just remembering things. And thank you, Lisa, for bringing us all together. And somebody talked about, Hazel talked about Ross Gay. And, you know, since a certain election, I'm like, I am going to find joy in every single day. And right now, my joy is being with all of you at this beautiful environment. I'm going to read from a short story. You can actually find the whole thing online if you want to look it up later. I'm going to condense it a bit. This did come from the writers group that Lisa Cheby mentioned, and you know they were my first readers. When the pandemic hit, honestly, my husband and I were pretty privileged. We sat in our home, we were together, we were safe. I really worried about the kids. I was so worried about under-resourced kids, you know, what were they doing? How were their lives? And so this character came to me. And as I was writing this story, Gary Phillips was the editor of Akashic South Central Noir, and he asked me for a story. And this is the story that I gave him. If found, please return to Abigail Cerna, 158 3/4 East Martin Luther King Boulevard. My school counselor said that I have to do this. She said that she wouldn't ever read what I wrote. She added, not that she didn't want to know what was going on in my head. It was just rude to assume someone could read the words you had just written. She would need my permission. Her name is Ms. Cifuentes, and she's glaring at the two boys in the back who are mumbling to each other. Ms. Cifuentes is old, not as old as my mom, but she must be 30 at least. She wears black plastic glass frames that end up on the tip of her nose. She could be super pretty if she wore makeup. It's almost like she doesn't care. That worries me in adults. What made them stop caring? My problem, and this isn't official, is that I care too much. That's not the word for what Ms. C said, but it does have something to do with why I'm here scrawling my pencil across a cheap composition book. Everything here at Accelerated School is cheap. When I was a kid, when I was younger, I knew LA had a lot of rich people, so why weren't there any rich people in our school? And why was our elementary school so dang poor we had busted swings and shit that nobody was allowed on? It was roped off, which posed a whole new set of challenges. It wasn't until I got older that I found out the rich have their own schools. Wow, what a setup, right? I found this out when our pathetic, bony, no-talent volleyball team, of which I am a member, set off with our PE teacher, Mrs. Jones, in her scuffed and smelly minivan, the kind of minivan Carmela's mom drives. We teased Carmela about it was so old. Carmela just sniffed at us. At least she has a car. She's not taking the bus. That shut us up because all our moms take the bus. Although we all felt it was rude of Carmela to point this out. In any case, we drove through hills that were greener than anything I'd seen before. Why was our neighborhood so parched and dry? Even in elementary school, there was only concrete and maybe a little sand underneath the swings that were roped off. You might think I'd seen LA on TV, right? And wealthy places and green hills, but we all know that's just because something's on TV or in the movies doesn't make it real. Fast and Furious, right? My mom loves those movies and it just makes me laugh. We drove up through those green hills with a view of the beach. Straight up, green hills, beach, blue skies, the most expensive houses I'd ever seen in real life. Imagine all that expensive stuff inside, and not one of them had bars on the windows. Where I'm from, all of our windows have bars. I realized I was in a completely different part of the world. Even the air smelled better. We shuffled out of Mrs. Jones' beat-up van and went to a school gym that had been waxed and polished so hard the floor was glowing. The walls looked freshly painted. There weren't a lot of people in the stands, something I should have been grateful for, but I could see the stands look brand new. This gym didn't stink of cafeteria food and sweat and yelling teachers. This gym smelled of money. Right across the net from us were 4 girls who looked like Amazons in training and 8 more standing by for their time at the net. I swear to God, each of them was 2 heads taller than Annette, our captain, our star, our tallest member. The weird thing was, after we lost game after game after game, I don't think any one of us felt humiliated. Nah. A volleyball game against rich girls of the most beautiful school we'd ever been to? Nah. We, or I at least, realized we lived in a parallel universe. An entire world lived not too far away. Somewhere bright and shiny. After the game, Mrs. Jones pulled into a beach parking lot and set us off down there. She'd even packed Subway sandwiches and chips and drinks in a cooler. I didn't think about it until right now, writing it down, but it probably cost her something. I hope I said thank you. Now I'm worried that I didn't. Which, full circle, the writing down is what I'm supposed to be doing here and not the overthinking. Ms. Cifuentes gave me a stern talk and said that I was overthinking things and overthinking was going to freeze me and make me unhappy. I have a theory that plenty of other things make me unhappy, but I didn't want to disagree with Ms. Cifuentes and risk her not talking to me. She told me to write down everything that I was overthinking 15 minutes a day, and somehow, like magic, she didn't say that, I'm drawing an inference, as my English teacher, Mrs. Banks, would say. All those things I worried about, all those things that went round and round in my head would disappear. That seems so laughable that I might even give it a try, but the things going round and round in my head aren't anything that I just put down here. But at least my 15 minutes are up. So we visit Abigail, and then, turns into February, it turns into March, and the schools are supposed to shut down for 3 weeks, but they don't shut down for 3 weeks. They think they shut down for a little bit longer. And I'll just come visit it here. I don't think I can spend my whole day here writing about everything that's worrying me. As much as I appreciate her ideas, I don't think Ms. Cifuentes is right about this. Writing down what I'm worried about, putting it into words, almost makes me feel worse, fills me with a kind of dread, like those stories in English class we read last October by Edgar Allan Poe. All heavy and dark, like there's this mist around me, despite the sun shining out there, despite my little sister Carol listening to Taylor Swift. Or maybe like that Stephen King film I watched. It feels like that, like parts of my world are disappearing. I wonder if my mom's going to call Dad. I wonder. So we visit her, and she's kind of like taking control of the family, Abigail, because even though her mom works at La Marquette, but her mom's sick. So her mom has cordoned herself out in the bedroom in the back, and Abigail's in charge of everything. When Carl was in bed, I cleaned the kitchen like I've watched Ma do dozens and dozens of times. I took a bath. The apartment was quiet. I brushed my teeth. I got a clean set of pajamas and thought, great, I'm going to have to figure out how to get us clean clothes sometime. I tried watching TV, but it was all so stupid. I watched the news. I heard about the virus, and my guts started churning. I came in here and tried to sleep. Then I heard the very worst thing. There were no traffic noises, like everything had stopped everywhere. I heard my mom open the door and walk down the hallway to use the bathroom, then back to her room. I waited. I walked to her room, listened, heard her snoring, and opened the door. Her phone was next to her. I gently picked up her phone and walked softly all the way to our sofa. I tapped in Dad's number and held my breath. I could explain. He'd come and help us. Things would get better. I was so nervous. I dialed the wrong number. I tapped again. What? That didn't make sense. Again. This time I made sure every number, and still I couldn't believe it when the recording told me that this number had been disconnected. I've already tried going to sleep once. Carl was asleep above me. I could hear her breathing. I laid down, hugging the mattress. I could hear my heart pounding and pounding. I tried and tried to go to sleep. Nothing. I got up again and started to write here. I feel like that time when I was 10, when I stayed up late. Something was going to happen. I could feel it, and it did happen. That night we had an earthquake that woke up everybody except me because I was already awake. Now I'm just laying here, writing, waiting for the earthquake to arrive. Thank you, everybody. And now let's hear from Romaine. Woohoo! Yay, Romaine!
I am so happy to be a part of this reading. Thank you for the invitation, and mostly, thank you, women who submit. I wouldn't know almost all of the women that are here if it weren't for women who submit. And I met you and got to know you intimately, or somewhat intimately, during the Zooms, during the Saturday morning Zooms. And I think they were every week at that. Oh my gosh. They kept loneliness at bay. So the first poem that I'm going to share with you is in one of the anthologies from Women Who Submit. And I had this kind of magical realism, surrealism feelings the first year. So this is from Inside a Burning Building, and this is one of the workshop participants that I had. And she got, well, I'm explaining too much. This is a persona poem, and I'm writing from the participant's perspective. I am writing from inside a burning building. The cell phone in the corner keeps asking, how am I doing? What do I see? Does it hurt as bad as it smells? I have lost my sense of smell, but understand we must document these things because we are here and still alive. My hair is charcoal, skin is peeling layers of tears. Scientists say the skin weeps when it is badly burned. The air tastes like tires. Though I have never tasted a tire, this is how I imagine it tastes. This is what I must tell the cell phone so it has a simile to understand. There are really no words to describe how it feels to be inside a burning building. There are no words to capture the sensation of walls eating you alive. I look out, windows exploding, knowing they will be there tomorrow, the same time, ready to explode again. My cell phone rings. COVID is calling from a hospital bed. I cannot visit my friend whose fever is so high she is hallucinating. She says, I am sweat pouring from my eyes, yelling at me. There are stories to be written. She says, I am sorry, but I can't. She hangs up the phone. Tomorrow she is telling me, it feels good to be quarantined, where the sheets are white and the quiet is eating me alive. And she didn't make it. But she was beautiful. And she's still here in this poem. So then there was a friend who was doing, it's in Spectrum 30, and he's like, hey, I got this challenge. Write a poem with 30 in it. And I was like, okay. Sisyphus is baying at the sun while I play bongos to Gil Scott-Heron's latest podcast, and the television dives into the kitchen sink. A monkey climbs up a monolith syringe, throws a bone in the air, counts to 30 on an endless loop. Kafka and I argue about directives less than 6 feet apart, over 15 minutes together. Infected, sneezes linger in the air like magic carpets. Time stands still. No wishes allowed. We know no one has the answers, but physicists and numerologists are adding up the probabilities of just how long this will last again. So that's Pandemic in the Fourth Dimension. And one of the joys that I had during pandemic was the park. Oh my gosh. And there were so many people at the park. And so I have 2 park poems to share with you. At Red Hill Park, a meandering sidewalk surrounds a pond dotted with brown and white barking ducks, laughing and cursing. I ramble around smelling sun and the heat of massed breath. Swings are bound in yellow tape, spun round slides and merry-go-rounds. A cascade of spider thread shimmers. My feet drift into a portal. I am latchkey 12, ritual walking to school and home. No eye contact with strangers. Tread by with lowered head. Danger will be averted. Latchkey opens, bolted door, wait for mother to traipse in, complains about her day as I morph into a barista. She is my sacred company, sequestered, us two. Ghost breezes of dreams, now I amble around Red Hill, flirt with dogs tethered to owners, ritual stroll home. My son rambles about crypto and NFTs in a Salvador Dali loop. So, because time just felt that way during the pandemic. And this is the last poem, and I have to tell you, part of the reason why I love this reading so much is I had so many other poems that still ramble in my head. And so when we do our next pandemic reading, there will be other poems, all the little political poems that were rambling in my head and so forth. So this is deciduous. I've meant to time myself to see if I had enough time to read a not pandemic poem, because I didn't realize until January 20th that part of the illusion of time being not what we thought it would be chronologically was not just the pandemic and being sequestered, but it was also the administration, where every day felt like a year. And I didn't know it until now. So I do have an administration poem, but I'll see if I have permission to read that after I read this one. Do I? Oh, you're like, yeah. Okay, well, I'm going to read you know what? I'm going to end with deciduous then, because it's a little bit more upbeat than. So I just wrote this one yesterday, even though it's been rambling around inside of me. I don't have a title for it yet, so I'm just calling it to Zelensky. I am always amazed when I see brutality. How can we slice a human mind in two while the skull is intact? White on white crime is dressed in business suits, so I imagine. I have never seen it happen. It's just rumor and conjecture, slanted whispers and shredded documents. Bullies lie in the most conspicuous places, as though their words create new realities and we mistake them for flesh and blood men. Didn't we know all the time Vladimir is pulling the ventriloquist trigger? Zelensky, I had my popcorn ready to hear you wax eloquent. You knocked on the door expecting a man who could see your humanity. Instead, you retreated like a black boy, running for his life in the middle of the night. Dahmer chasing you with loaded gun and Jinsu knives in holsters. You were running with adrenaline chiseling a new rib in your chest. A porch light of hope, the sound of a kind TV chatter of commercials, an open-screened window, an Oval Office with family photos. Surely this will be a sane place to get hope and help. After all, you're not dead yet. The adrenaline in your chest pounds on the front door. Help! Call the police! You scream. A man with small hands and a toothpick in his teeth and Kentucky Fried Chicken on his breath pretends to be a businessman. He sucks power from the powerless to extend his life. You thought the hollowed wooden man who opened the door and walked away to let you enter was offering salvation. His vance of a woman hisses from the sofa. What kind of man runs for his life improperly dressed? You deserve to be killed, resurrected, killed again. You remind me of one of those black boys I ate for lunch yesterday. And you begin to suspect the man who answered the door has been on the phone talking to Dahmer, because he has. President Littlehand saunters into the kitchen to turn on the oven. You are his favorite type of bullseye. All of your eloquence is silenced. There is no explaining the final moments witnessing a lynching on national TV. You want to report a murder, but it has already happened. This is the nightmare replay warning. This could be you. George Floyd, a giant of a man calling out to mama, surrounded by cannibals, woven together with human scalps. We pretend we didn't see President Littlehands pull the string of Chauvin's knees into Floyd's neck. George is looking at you, Zelensky, saying, I was murdered for $20. We all have a price tag in this regime. George smiles at Mama and says, tell him, Mama. And Mama and I say in unison, the way I see it, Zelensky looks like a black boy knocking at the wrong door. So that's my pandemic poem also. We're sequestered in a different kind of way. The last poem is a mirror poem. Green gold leaves shimmy in a lazy blue sky. Indifferent, branches giggle and gyrate in breezy autumn surrender. My son calls them laughing trees where time counts backwards. Bare-limbed this year, they fall faster in a furious rain, burying themselves and us. Too many to count, so many to mourn. When I turn on the news, 100,000, 250,000, 500,000, a million plus casket, the earth unearthed, we hostages sheltering in place, grieving, sheltering in place. We hostages, unearthed, casket the earth, a million plus, 100,000, 250,000, 500,000. When I turn on the news, so many to mourn, too many to count, burying themselves and us. In a furious rain, they fall faster this year. Bare-limbed, where time counts backwards, my son calls them laughing trees. Surrender in breezy autumn, Branches giggle and gyrate, indifferent, in a lazy blue sky. Green gold leaves shimmy.
Well, thank you all. That was amazing. Please give a round of applause for all of our readers. I mean, I think I put this event together for my own healing. And so thank you all. It really has, as Désirée said, it's been a lot of emotions and more beautiful than I even imagined this to be. And I hope it was healing for others as well. And I think more than ever, I also didn't, last summer, I didn't necessarily think how much we would need this, for our new reality that we're dealing with, which is a different, as you said, different kind of sort of sequestering and that oppressive sense that we all have, and fear, and that fear that we have to face and move forward. And hopefully overcome for something better. I want to finish with just the beginning of the chapbook, just a little bit. And again, thank you all for coming and being here. And there's some food and drinks outside. And please stay and chat if you can a little bit, and just share community with us. Contact tracing. Rain in Griffith Park and my last human contact. I snuck out early from day one of work from home. I lay my naked body face down under the sheet. Jenny prepared my body with oils. Before I returned to begin shelter at home, the rain and no one but I walked in Griffith Park. The eucalyptus and longleaf pines are closer than 6 feet. Their branches brush, alive and fearlessly fragrant. 5 men play golf as cars swish by. My umbrella proclaims slogans from last year's teachers' strike, where I learned it is acceptable to walk in the rain. Healthy, doable, even necessary. 8 days ago, we were still pretending our lives could persist unaltered. We chose the air and space of Descanso Gardens over a museum. We were already washing hands more profusely, denying hugs. We stood on tiptoe to smell the cherry blossom, caress the rough skin of trees. Today, to feed my skin, I brushed the Norfolk Island pine on my balcony. A year before, I had been craving slowness to clear the way for learning, to say no, to value time, the only yield we can never recoup. But now, what is a librarian without a library around her? If sheltering alone, does the body's palpitations have a sound? Did the California towhee always visit at this hour to sing of the luminous lucidity of the sun's ascent? By the end, will I understand birdsong? Should I sing of the pepper plant grown from seeds normally wasted that I, on a whim, discarded into a barren pot of dirt? What fruit will we bear before called to return to the rush of distractions? For now, we absorb the sun together, feel nourished and alive. Thank you.
Round of applause for all of our features this afternoon. Thank you all. Yes. Yes, it was an honor hosting you. Thank you so much for being here. And yeah, feel free to grab some drinks. There are books outside as well. I'm sure our authors will be happy to sign them. And yeah, become a member, please. Feel free to support the space. There are a lot of perks that come with becoming a member. And you come to events for free. And also, there are some books that we are promoting at the moment, including The Writing Life, which has compilation of 57 years of this organization's history. All right. So thank you all, and have a good rest of your day.
I hope he knows I do it out of love. Look at Bruce right there. One more.